Hey guys and girls, how's it going? Alright, this week's review is on Hyrule Warriors. So, I will admit, I'm not a huge fan of the Dynasty Warrior games. I've always found them very, very repetitive. But Hyrule Warriors definitely piqued my interest. So here it is. Here is what I thought of this game on the Wii U. So let's start, of course, with the good. Now, there are many things about this game which are really, really good. The first thing I really liked was the story. I felt the story was really good. It was a very, very, very good length. In total, I'd say it's probably, 8 to 10 hours in length. Lots of different levels. The animations were great. The music was great. The way the story was set out was fantastic. I really loved it. If you're a fan of the Zelda series, you will love this game because there are a lot of references to older Zelda games. Basically, I don't want to spoil too much in the story, but suffice it to say, during the course of the story, you get to revisit sort of famous key locations in Zelda games like, for example, Skyward Sword or Twilight Princess. There's a lot of familiar bosses, a lot of familiar characters, lots of little references and little things there. So if you're a big Nintendo fan, if you're a big Zelda fan, you're going to really, really enjoy all those little elements. If you're completely new to the series as well, the story is very, very good and it's a lot of fun. The second thing I really loved about this game was the character roster. There are so many characters in this game, so many playable characters. In total, there are about 13 playable characters. All of them are very, very, very different. They all have different unique movesets, and their combat in the game is heaps of fun. They all have their own sort of weapons, and they all have different weapons. So if you equip a new weapon, like for example, Link has 5 different weapons that you can use within the game. Each of them are very, very different, very cool, right down. I mean, even his 8-bit sword, well, it does seem incredibly out of place, is quite amusing and quite hilarious, and it's heaps of fun. All the characters are cool. I'd say probably my favorite character within the game definitely had to be Impa. I loved playing as Impa. I thought she was badass. I thought she was cool. I loved her moves, whether it was with her sword or whether it was with her Naginata. Just heaps of fun. Zelda was incredibly enjoyable to play as. All the characters really were all different and all unique. Depending on what weapon you're using, it completely changes the sort of game mechanics and the combat mechanics and your style of fighting, and that's really, really, really enjoyable. And you can play through the same level and the experience is different every time depending on what character that you're actually playing with. It is heaps of fun. Really, really cool to experiment with all their different combos and moves, and you just felt really, really cool when you were doing it. And the animations for them, they looked cool on the screen and they were just heaps of fun. So for me, the best part of this game has got to be the combat, the characters, the character combinations, their weapons, their moves, all that good stuff. That is the best part of this game for me. There's lots and lots of replay value within the game. There's about 4 different modes that you can play. There's legendary mode, which is sort of the main story. There's sort of free mode or a free play, which is basically where you just play back through the level without any sort of story links or anything. There's adventure mode, and there's challenge mode. Now, adventure mode is virtually an entire game within itself. You sort of play on this sort of map. It's exactly, the map is based on an old map which was in the original Zelda game, the very first Zelda game that came out, sort of 8-bit style and everything. It's really cool because you go into each area and that sort of opens up into sort of a map. Now within the actual level, each of these levels have their own different challenges and they all have their own rewards. You can gain things like weapons, new characters, new leveled weapons, lots of different things. Each of those levels has their own kind of leveling system, from S rank, A rank, right down. But there's a lot of exploration within adventure mode as well, because they're based in this old sort of Zelda map. you can actually go in there, and there are sort of rocks and trees and different things which are bombable or burnable, and they will reveal a kind of a secret which you need to sort of find in order to unlock all that sort of S rank gold standard stuff. And you can either use your own knowledge if you're a big fan of the original Zelda game and you played that through a million times and you know these maps inside out, or there are other elements within the game which can help people, like things as a compass and cards and different things that you can use. But the adventure mode is heaps of fun. There is an online element to the game. It's called a network link. Get it? Link. Basically, what it is so if somebody's online playing the game at that time, they will pop up in adventure mode on a particular level, and depending on what level that person is, the difficulty of the enemies that you're fighting also increases to match it, and the rewards from facing these kind of levels are quite good too. So that's quite nice. It adds an extra challenge to it. Now the challenge mode itself is quite fun. It's very simple. It's just playing through a map, through a particular level, and you get given challenges that you have to complete, like kill so many enemies, say kill 500 enemies in 5 minutes, kill 300 enemies with nothing but special moves, kill 300 enemies with your spirit move, things like that. And you try and complete each of these challenges, and it's virtually like if you keep completing it, it puts a new challenge on you again and again and again until you fail and then sort of end that level. Now the only it's quite fun, I will admit. The only downside to it is that there is only one level, but I am told that there is going to be DLC content that's going to add to that. Now for me, the best way to play this game is absolutely cooperatively, to play with a friend. I played the entire story through cooperatively, and I enjoyed it. It was heaps and heaps of fun. It was really good. It's very enjoyable because obviously it has a lot of sort of battle elements where things are changing during the gameplay and the enemies moving and making certain moves, and you have to go to certain sort of forts and strategic points and take them. It's quite useful if you're playing cooperatively because you can go one direction and you can send your friend in another direction and you can coordinate, and in that way that sort of military strategy dynamic to the game is quite enjoyable. There's a lot of fun, challenging boss levels and boss fights, which is really enjoyable. And each of the big boss fights in the levels are different and unique. You have to take them on in different ways. You have to use different weapons to be able to take them on, whether it's the bow and arrow, the boomerang, bombs, your special move, whatever it may be. Now, if you've played the original Zelda games, I will say that you have an unfair advantage in this because the way in which you take them down is exactly the same as the way you took them down in the original Zelda games. So if you've already played them, you definitely have an advantage, but it's quite enjoyable if you haven't played them because you can experiment with different techniques to find the way that works. And I really enjoyed the boss fights in these games. I found them challenging and found them highly enjoyable. Now another element to this game which is really good as well is there are a variety of different difficulty levels. There's easy mode, normal mode, hard mode, and then if you complete the game there is hero mode. Now that again, it just adds onto that replayability value, that challenge value that we're looking for. So this game is very big, it's long, it's got heaps of content in there, and you're definitely getting your money's worth from this game, which is absolutely fantastic. Now the bad side, what did I not like about this game? Well, like I said, I really enjoyed the story, but I will have to say that one of the downsides to this game is there was no voice acting, and for me, I found that really off-putting and really jarring for some reason. Now, of course, if you've played the original Zelda games, you're going to be used to that. You're going to be used to not having any sort of voice acting and just having sort of scripts up on the screen and slight sound effects, and you might be completely used to that, and that's absolutely okay. And in that way, it is very consistent with the original Zelda games, and it does follow on quite naturally. But for me, who really hadn't played many of the original Zelda games, for me it was quite jarring, quite off-putting, and sometimes it did make it a bit difficult to sort of immerse yourself into that story and connect to the characters, because there was no voice acting. Though I will say it was heaps of fun to sort of put your own slant on things and sort of do your own voice acting to what was going on the screen. There were some quite amusing points when I definitely did that. The second point, in terms of, you know, many of the maps and the main missions, I found them quite repetitive. Often you'd be doing the same thing on each level. So, you know, you'd have to take down certain forts, you'd have to sort of defeat certain enemies, you might have to go to this kind of magic circle, you're going to have to call the fairy who's going to weaken the big bad, and then you go and do this boss battle and defeat the enemy and win that level. Now each level for me was too repetitive. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more variety in the levels, in the mission objectives especially, so that it wasn't super repetitive. And honestly, I think that's probably is due to the influence that the developers of Dynasty Warriors have brought into this game, because a lot of the Dynasty Warrior games themselves are very repetitive. So in that way, it's consistent. But for me, I don't like that element to the game. And you know, if you're not a fan of Dynasty Warriors, if you're not a massive Zelda fan, I feel that you're going to get very bored and that you're going to find those missions incredibly repetitive, and to be honest, to a degree, you might actually switch off later on in the game. So that was the big thing for me, that I felt that was the weakest element to the actual game. Okay, so overall, I would say Hyrule Warriors is an incredibly fun game. I would say it's probably the worst Zelda game that's ever come out, but at the same time, it is the best Dynasty Warrior games that's been released as well. So I would definitely recommend Hyrule Warriors. Now, overall, I would probably give this game a 7 out of 10. Like I said, tons of characters, tons of content, tons of replay value, lots of great combat, fun, cooperatively an incredibly fun game to play. But I would say that there's just too much repetitiveness within the game. The mission modes, the mission objectives are just too repetitive, lack imagination, and so for that's why I will only give this game a 7 out of 10. Alright guys and girls, so that's what I think of Hyrule Warriors. Hope you guys enjoyed this review. Let me know, what do you think of Hyrule Warriors? Have you played it? Are you interested in it? Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Let me know what you think about this review. Did you enjoy it? Did you find it useful? I'm always looking for feedback, guys, just to improve my reviews, improve my content out to you guys. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button as always to show your support. If this is the first video you've seen on my channel and you really enjoyed it, please subscribe for more of that good stuff. Alright guys and girls, have a great day, take care, and as always, happy gaming!
Thunder! 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 Thundercats!